Hi, I'm Tina, and I'm here to help you understand the food label. Do you walk down the grocery aisle and see so many options you just don't know what to choose? For example, peanut butter. There's just so many to choose from. So, how do you pick it? How do you pick the one to take home and feed to your family? Or what do you choose for your own health consciousness? Well, take a look at the back and consider the label. But what am I looking at? Well, this is a nutrition label, and we're going to discover it today. Well, the first place to look at a nutrition label is the serving size. How much do you eat when you eat this item? I know for a peanut butter sandwich, I might choose to eat 2 servings. Well, if a serving is only 2 tablespoons, then you only have to have 4 tablespoons to make that 2 servings. Then it's time to multiply. So we've figured out the serving size. Now we're going to look at calories. Calories are energy, and this is going to tell us how much energy is in this peanut butter. For instance, in this particular peanut butter, there is 190 calories in 1 serving. That means if you eat 2 servings, you're going to eat 380 calories in that one meal, just from this item. So now we've got a better grasp of calories. What do those other numbers mean? Well, these are the nutrients, and these are the amount in each serving. So let's look at the fat first. This particular item has 16 grams of fat per serving. They then show you a breakdown of saturated fat and trans fat. What about the percentages? Well, we'll get to that. So the percentages. This is telling us that there is 20% of a recommended daily value of fat. So 16 grams is 20% of the recommended amount of fat. However, this is based on a 2,000 calorie diet. And a lot of people don't need 2,000 calories every day. So it's best to use these percentages as more of a guide when comparing items. Say, for instance, this peanut butter has 16 grams of fat and 20% of the daily value, or DV. If you found another peanut butter that perhaps said it had 30% and 20 grams of fat, well, then you would know that that peanut butter has significantly more fat in each serving. This gives you a comparison value, but not necessarily the total percentage of your diet. Moving on, we've looked at the top, we've looked at the calories, the serving size, the amounts of nutrients in each serving, and what all of that means. You can see here that one peanut butter has 16 grams of fat and it says 21%. The other has 16 grams of fat and says 20%. It's the same grams of fat. The percentage is slightly different. That's how you know that the DV percentage is not an exact number idea. It's more of a comparison, and some companies choose to use a different value than others. That's why it's better to look at the grams of something or the milligrams of something in the amount per serving. Now we're going to move on to the ingredients. Both these items are peanut butter, but the ingredients list is quite different. So how do you read ingredients? What does it mean? It's peanut butter, right? It's a little more than peanut butter. As you can see, these ingredients lists are quite different. One of them says there's molasses, fully hydrogenated vegetable oil, rapeseed and soybean, mono and diglycerides. What are all of those? The other one's pretty easy. It contains peanuts and 1% or less of salt. It's important to note that when you're looking at ingredients, the first ingredient listed is going to be the most of the contents of that item. The second ingredient is also usually in pretty high amounts. The ingredients list is in descending order of amount. That means both of these, the main ingredient is peanuts, but the one on the left, the second ingredient is sugar. Do you really need extra sugar in your peanut butter? That's up to you. Let's look at some other names for sugar. Molasses, syrup. There's lots of kinds of syrup. You might see rice syrup, corn syrup, barley syrup. There's lots of syrups. Other names might be maltodextrin, ethyl maltitol, barley malt, disaccharides, fructose, glucose, galactose, and dextran. You might also see lactose. There's so many names for sugar. Let's go back and look. Hey, mono and diglycerides. What is that? Well, we see here that disaccharides are a sugar. So mono and diglycerides could be something like sugar. It's always best to look up a word that you don't understand on the back of an ingredients label. Let's move on to some other secret words. Partially hydrogenated vegetable oil and hydrogenated vegetable oil. Well, these are actually secret words for trans fat. Trans fat is different than normal fat, or the fat that you think of when you think of fat. Trans fats are artificial fats. These are fats that have been made to be solid at room temperature or have been made to be liquid at room temperature. It's about a chemical process, and it's often used to make food taste better without making it better for you. Let's go back to those peanut butter ingredients. Fully hydrogenated vegetable oils. That sounds like another name for fat. Let's see. Some ideas for better fats would be monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, and omega-3 fats. Those are the natural fats found in nature, like salmon, avocados, nuts, seeds. These are fats that occur naturally. They aren't usually solid at room temperature, and they'll help keep your body healthy and provide you energy and transporters for essential vitamins. So, which of these peanut butters do you choose? The one on the left is crunchy natural peanut butter. This peanut butter has 1% or less of salt, and the rest of it is peanuts. That seems a lot better to me than something with roasted peanuts, sugar, and molasses, that's a sugar, fully hydrogenated vegetable oil, and mono and diglycerides, and salt. That's a lot of ingredients for one simple nut butter. Peanut butter. I know which one I would choose. Which one would you choose? That's a really great question. So it's probably most important for a consumer to read the label because knowing what's in your food is just as important as, how it was made, what you're putting into your body is important. And to get the most out of what we're eating and fueling ourselves with the most valuable items, it's important to take a look at the label and understand, what it is. If I can't read half the things on the back of my label, then I'm not so sure that I want to put that in my body. There's been a lot of research indicating that, say, like trans fats or saturated fats are really not good for us, and they can cause things as it can cause things as non-life-threatening as just being lethargic or having a generalized fatigue, to causing things like clogged arteries, which can lead to heart disease and diabetes and lots of other negative outcomes that we just really don't want to have happen to ourselves or to our families. So That's why I'd say it's so important to pay attention to what you're eating, pay attention to what you're serving your family, your friends, and really read the back of those labels. Oh my gosh, that is so true. Food labels can be really confusing sometimes. And some of those words, I mean, 4, 5, 6 different syllables in one word. I mean, what does that even mean? So when I come across something on a food label that I don't understand, I hit the internet. I'll go and search, just type the word into Google. And yes, Google is not the best for any health information or something like that, but it can be really helpful in giving you an identification for a word that you don't know what it means. So just you find something on a food label you don't know, maybe you have your smartphone with you, maybe you're at the library, and you just go into Google, go onto Internet Explorer, type that word in, and it'll help you figure out what it is. And another rule of thumb that I like to follow is if I can't read more than half of what's in a food label, I'm probably not going to buy that item. So if I don't know what, monoditrisodium phosphate is, who knows what that is? I just made that up. But if I don't know what that is, then I probably don't want it in my body. We're people and we're just animals, we're just humans. And if I wouldn't want to serve it to my cat or my dog or my fish, I probably don't want to eat it myself. So when I'm looking for something to eat and I'm going to buy that prepackaged cereal or the canned item, I like to see at least the first 4 ingredients be a food that I know the name of and I can identify where it came from and how it grows. Goji berry. If I don't know what that is or where it came from, I'm going to look that up before I put it in my body. And I think that's a really good rule of thumb for most people. Look it up, find out what the word means, you'll learn something, and you'll be a more educated consumer. So don't shy away from looking up new words. It's good for your brain and it's good for your body when you're talking about something to eat. So when I am educating someone about how to read a food label and what's important to them, well, first of all, if they have any comorbidities or they have some sort of a disease state or an injury that they're eating to try and help with, say, for instance, someone has diabetes or heart disease, it's important to pay attention to what your doctor has instructed you to pay attention to. So oftentimes with diabetes, you're probably looking at carbohydrates and sugars. You might also look at fiber. I have a can of Southwest style black bean and vegetable soup here. So let me show you, if I had diabetes, for instance, here's where I would look. See, you've got the carbohydrates and the fiber and sugar all right in a row there. That's where my eye would go first if I had diabetes, because I want to know how many carbohydrates are in this item so that I know how much insulin I might have to give myself. Another thing, if you have heart disease, you might really want to know about potassium, and you might want to know about fat, and you might want to know about protein, because those are all really important to how our hearts function. So all items are going to have a potassium that's right here. Right above the carbohydrates, you can see where it says the potassium. The fat is always right at the top underneath the calories, and protein is almost always down at the bottom. I say almost always because there is this other little section here, right? There it is, that shows us about vitamin A, calcium, and vitamin C and iron. So protein will be above that little section that's just percentages of vitamins. So I think it really depends where a person is at in their health status and what is important to them about what they're going to be looking at when they look at a label. So personally, for me, I always like to look at the protein content, the calories, and the types of fat. So you'll notice, like on this can right here, we've got several different kinds of fat being listed. I like to see a lot of mono and polyunsaturated fat. That's the fat. So I want to eat, those are like your omega-3s, your omega-6s. Those are really important for your skin, your hair, and your brain. So those are really important items, and I want to see that in the foods that I'm eating. I also really, if I'm eating something that I'm like, this is for my protein intake today, for instance, this bean soup here, I want to see that there is protein. So I'm going to look at the calories first, and I'm going to look at the protein second. Um, just because those are things that, as a vegetarian, I have a hard time getting enough protein sometimes. I definitely tend to slide into a high carbohydrate diet because they're so delicious. That's what our sugars and our breads and all those yummy comfort foods are. So it's important to me to get adequate calories and adequate protein. That's not to say that's the case for everyone. Some people, like, say, for instance, my diabetic grandfather, it was really important for us to pay attention to the carbohydrates, the sugars, and keeping a lower fat diet to keep his blood vessels nice and open and getting oxygen from his lungs and his heart down to, say, his feet. So it really depends on the individual. If your doctor has told you that you need to be monitoring a certain nutrient, then it's really important to know where to find that on your label and what your range is. So that's something to discuss with your doctor or your dietitian. So a final note I want to make about reading a nutrition label or a food facts label, whatever you want to call it, is educate yourself. Take a few minutes, log on to myplate.org, log on to the USDA's website, and if you feel like it, you could even go to eatright.org. That is the Academy for Nutrition and Dietetics website. And find a local dietitian, talk to a dietitian, talk to your doctor, try to understand what is most important for you. Every body is different, and that is something that I learned from a dietitian, an instructor who I very greatly respect. Every body is different, and what you need is different than what someone else needs, even though we all need calories for energy, protein for restoring our bodies, our muscles, building all of the different tissues. Carbohydrates, those are directly affecting your brain. That our brain is something that can only really survive and function with carbohydrates. That's what crosses the blood-brain barrier and gives us the thinking power we need. And fats are so important for proper absorption of the A, D, E, and K vitamins. Our skin and every single cell wall is made up of fats. So to say that one food or nutrient is a bad thing or a good thing is just, it's not accurate. And it's really important to educate yourself, find out what your body needs, and then eat to satiate your hunger, but also to keep you vital and healthy and functioning as your best self.